Mariana Estrella woke up 5 minutes before the alarm clock rang. It was still pre-dawn dark outside the window, and the cool morning mist that characterized Guanajuato at this time of year was in the air. She slipped carefully out of bed, careful not to wake her sleeping husband. Raúl mumbled something in his sleep and rolled over onto his other side, not even noticing her absence. In the bathroom, Mariana turned on the light with her usual motion and looked at her reflection for a few seconds. 33 years old, and the corners of her eyes already showed barely visible wrinkles. She ran her hand through her long, dark hair, noting that it was time for a hairdresser's appointment. Raúl used to always notice little things like that, but lately it was as if he'd stopped seeing her. The morning ritual had been practiced for years: shower, light makeup, hair styled. Mariana pulled out a gray slip dress from the closet, strict and elegant as an accountant should be. As she gathered her documents into her leather bag, she glanced at her husband. He used to always wake up to wish her a good day, but that was less and less often now. She arrived at the office at 8 o'clock sharp. The small construction company where Mariana had worked for the past 5 years occupied the second floor of an old building in the center of the city. Her desk was at a window overlooking a narrow street paved with colorful stones. "Good morning, Señora Estrella," Sofia, the young secretary, greeted her. "Señor Ramirez asked me to stop by and see him as soon as you showed up." Jorge Ramirez, her boss, was immersed in studying some documents when Mariana entered his office. "Ah, Mariana, have a seat." He indicated a chair across from his desk. "How's the work on the annual report coming along?" "On schedule, Señor Ramirez. It will be ready by the end of the week." "Good. Also," he looked at her carefully over his glasses, "are you all right? You seem a little distracted lately." Mariana gave a strained smile. "I'm fine. Just a lot of work." Returning to her desk, she immersed herself in numbers and spreadsheets. Work always helped take her mind off troubling thoughts. Around 11, the phone rang. Her brother's name popped up on the screen. "Mariana, how are you?" Ernesto's voice sounded concerned. "Fine, as usual." She tried to speak cheerfully, but something in her tone betrayed an inner tension. "Don't lie to me, sister. I can hear that something's wrong. Why don't we meet after work today?" Mariana wanted to refuse, citing busyness, but suddenly realized that she really needed to talk to her brother. "Okay, how about 5 o'clock at La Casita?" The little cafe was 2 blocks from her office. Ernesto was already waiting for her at a table at the back of the room where quiet music was playing. The policeman's uniform shirt was unbuttoned at the gate. His brother's workday was also coming to an end. "You look tired," he remarked as Mariana sat down across from him. "A lot of work." She brushed it off habitually, but Ernesto shook his head. "It's not about work, I can see that. What's going on at home?" Mariana stirred her coffee thoughtfully, choosing her words. "I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Raúl's been different lately. Distant. We used to talk long into the evenings, but now he's either working late or sitting on his phone." "How long has it been going on?" "About 2 months ago, maybe 3. At first I thought he was having problems at work, but when I ask, he says everything's fine." Ernesto frowned. "Did you check his cell phone?" "No, you didn't." Mariana was indignant. "I trust my husband." "Sometimes trust can be blind," her brother said quietly, but she pretended not to hear. Mariana got home around 7. Raúl was already home, sitting in the living room with his laptop. She went into the kitchen and pulled out some groceries for dinner from the refrigerator. Cooking always calmed her down, helped her get her thoughts in order. "You're late tonight," Raúl remarked, appearing on the kitchen doorstep. "Meeting Ernesto after work." "Oh," he said, and in that short sound Mariana heard a strange relief, as if he were glad she was seeing her brother and not someone else. Dinner was silent. Before it had been the cozy silence of 2 close people, now it seemed strained, filled with reticence. Mariana watched her husband methodically cut the meat on his plate, noting that his hands trembled slightly. After dinner, Raoul returned to his laptop and Mariana went about her household chores. She loaded the dishwasher, checked to make sure everything was ready for tomorrow, and watered the flowers on the windowsill. As she went about her routine, she found herself looking for signs of change without knowing what they were. In the bedroom, Raoul was already in bed, staring at his phone again. They used to read a lot before bed, discussing what they'd read. Now it was as if they were each in their own separate world. Mariana lay on her side of the bed, her back turned to her husband. "Good night," she said into the darkness. "Good night," he said after a long pause, and she sensed some guilt in his voice. The morning was unusually hot for this time of year. Mariana woke up earlier than usual because of the heat in the bedroom. Raoul was gone. His pillow had long since cooled. On the kitchen table she found a note written in the familiar sloppy handwriting. "Left early, important meeting. Typical of the last few weeks, no details, just dry facts." The office was in its usual end-of-the-month hustle and bustle. Sophia was sorting through the mail, stacking envelopes. Jorge Ramirez was holding a meeting with the contractors in the conference room, and his loud voice could be heard even through the closed doors. Mariana immersed herself in her work, methodically checking the numbers on the quarterly reports. "Señora Estrella," Sophia called out to her around noon, "the bank called you about reconciling the accounts." Mariana nodded and reached for the phone, but then it rang on its own. Her husband's name popped up on the screen. It was so unexpected that she froze for a second before answering. "Mariana?" Raoul's voice sounded unaccustomedly animated. "I have a suggestion. Let's have dinner tonight at Casa Flores." "At Casa Flores?" she interjected, surprised. It was one of the most expensive restaurants in town, one they hadn't been to in over a year. "Yes, I made reservations for 8 o'clock tonight. Can you make it?" "Sure," she replied, feeling her heart begin to beat more frequently. "But what's the occasion?" "You'll see," a mysterious note flashed in his voice. "I'll pick you up at the office." The rest of the day passed like a blur. Mariana tried to concentrate on work, but her thoughts kept returning to the upcoming dinner. Maybe she was getting herself worked up for nothing. Maybe Raoul just missed their romantic evenings. At 7 o'clock she pulled a makeup bag and a small mirror out of her desk drawer. Sophia, who was already getting ready to go home, watched curiously as her boss corrected her makeup and styling. "A date?" The secretary smiled. "With my husband," Mariana replied, and for some reason the word sounded strange, as if she were making an excuse. Raoul arrived exactly at the appointed time. He was dressed in the dark blue suit Mariana had given him for his last birthday, and he looked unusually excited. "You look beautiful," he said as he opened the car door in front of her, and there was a sincerity in his voice that had been sorely lacking lately. Casa Flores was housed in an old mansion overlooking the central square. It was semi-dark inside. Only on the tables flickered candles in silver candlesticks. The maitre d' escorted them to a table in the corner of the room, secluded enough to allow for quiet conversation. "Wine?" Raoul offered, studying the card. Mariana nodded, watching his face in the soft candlelight. He seemed both familiar and foreign at the same time, a feeling that would not leave her all evening. They talked about everyday things: work, Raoul's mother's recent visit, a new movie they wanted to see. Everything was almost the same as before, but Mariana felt that her husband was waiting for something, preparing for something important. After the main course, when the waiter cleared the plates and refilled the wine glasses, Raoul finally came to the main thing. "Mariana, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I have an offer on the country house." She tensed. The country house had been a gift from her father, the last thing left to him after his death. A small but cozy cottage an hour's drive from the city where they used to go often on weekends. "What's the offer?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think we should sell it." Raoul watched her reaction carefully. "Look, it's too far away. We've hardly been there lately. And with the proceeds we can buy something closer to town where we can actually spend time together." Mariana was silent, twirling her wine glass in her hands. The house was full of memories. It was where her childhood had been, where her father had taught her to swim in the small lake nearby, where she and Raoul had spent the first weekend after their wedding. "But the house is in good condition," she finally pronounced. "Not really," Raoul stepped forward. "I specifically went to check it out last week. The roof needs repair, the walls need repainting, and everything inside is outdated. To sell it for a good price, it needs some repairs." "You went there?" Mariana wondered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to bother about nothing." He covered her hand with his. "Look, I know how important this house is to you, but sometimes you have to let go of the past to move forward. I can take over the renovations. You've got a lot of work to do right now with the annual reports, and I'll organize everything. Hire the workers, oversee the process, and then handle the sale." Mariana looked at their joined hands on the white tablecloth. The suggestion sounded reasonable, but something deep down resisted the idea. "You won't have to worry about anything," Raoul continued. "I'll do everything myself. And when the house is sold, we'll pick a new vacation spot together, closer to the city. Imagine how great it'll be to get out there at least every weekend." "I need to think about it," she said quietly. "Sure," he smiled. "But not for too long. It's a good time for repairs before the rains come." The rest of dinner was spent discussing possible options for the new house. Raoul spoke enthusiastically, painting tantalizing pictures of the future, and gradually Mariana began to give in to his enthusiasm. Maybe he was right. Maybe it really was time to make a change. They got home about 11 o'clock. Raoul was unusually attentive, helped her out of the car, held the door for her. In the hallway, he pulled her to him and kissed her, the first time in days. "Think about my proposal," he whispered. "I want us to spend more time together." It had been a week since their conversation at the restaurant. Mariana had agreed to sell the house, although something inside her resisted the decision. Raoul took her agreement with an enthusiasm she hadn't seen in a long time. He immediately began calling builders, arranging for materials and making plans for the renovation. That morning, Mariana woke up to the sound of his voice. He was on the phone in the next room. The clock read 6 a.m., too early for business calls. "Yes, I'll be there today. No, she's not coming," came the scraps of conversation. Mariana tensed, listening. "Sure, I'll organize everything. Yes, see you later." When she left the bedroom, Raoul was already getting ready for work, tying his tie in front of the mirror in the hallway as if nothing had happened. "Who were you talking to?" she asked, trying to make the question sound nonchalant. "Oh, that? The foreman wanted to confirm details," he replied without turning around. "Sorry if I woke you up." "At 6 in the morning?" "Yes, he starts work early. Construction workers, you know." Raoul finally turned around and smiled. "I'm going to be late today. I'm going to go check on the house." "Maybe I'll go too," Mariana suggested. "I haven't been there in a while." No, you don't have to," he shook his head. "It's such a mess there right now. Wait until we finish at least the basic work. Besides, you have an important meeting with the auditors today, remember?" Mariana nodded. Indeed, there was a complicated meeting coming up today, but how did he know? She didn't remember telling him about it. The day at the office stretched slowly. After lunch, Sophia brought her coffee and lingered by her desk. "Senora Estrella, pardon my curiosity, but doesn't your husband work for Estrella Trading?" Mariana looked up in surprise. "No, he's at Mercado International." "Why?" "It's just that I saw him entering the Estrella office this morning. I must have gotten the wrong person." Mariana frowned. Estrella Trading was on the other side of town, not at all on the way to Raoul's work. She pulled out her phone and dialed his number, but it went to voicemail. Raoul returned late in the evening. "How was your day?" Mariana asked, putting on his warmed-up dinner. "Productive." He reached for the salt. "Started stripping the old wallpaper in the living room. They're bringing in the materials for the roof tomorrow." "What's new at work?" "Nothing much," he shrugged. "Just a normal day." Mariana wanted to ask about Estrella Trading, but something stopped her. Instead, she asked, "Do you need help organizing the repairs? I could—" "No need," he interrupted. "I promised I'd take care of everything. You're already loaded with work." After dinner, he went straight to the shower and then busied himself with some papers in the study. Mariana sat in the living room pretending to watch TV, but actually listening to him talking on the phone. The voice was muffled. It was impossible to make out the words. The next 2 weeks followed the same pattern. Raoul would leave early in the morning and return late at night. He was always on the phone, but always in another room or on the balcony. When Mariana asked about the renovation, he answered with general phrases. "Everything is going according to plan. The work is progressing. You'll soon see the result." On Friday night, she decided to cook his favorite dish, chili con carne. They used to have a lot of romantic dinners on Fridays, but lately that tradition had been forgotten. She set the table, lit the candles, and opened a bottle of wine. At 9 o'clock, Raoul called. "Sorry, don't expect me for dinner tonight. There's a problem with the wiring in the house that needs to be fixed right away." "At 9 o'clock at night?" she asked incredulously. "Yes, the electrician just now got off work. I don't want to leave the house with faulty wiring for the weekend." Mariana sat at the set table, looking at the cooling food and the burning candles. Her mind was spinning with scraps of conversation, strange coincidences, inexplicable details. Why was he so insistent that she not come to the house? Why does he make all the important calls in the other room? How did he know about her meeting with the auditors? What was he doing in the office of Estrella Trading? On Saturday morning, she woke up to the sound of the front door slamming shut. Raoul had left for the country house again. On the kitchen table lay a note. "I'll be late. Don't wait up." The handwriting was sloppy, as if he'd been in a hurry. Mariana went to the window. His car was speeding down the street, and she noticed that there were no tools or building materials in the back seat, just a small gym bag. All day long, she hadn't found a place to be. She tried reading, doing chores, sorting through work documents. Nothing helped to distract her. In the evening, her neighbor, Senora Morales, called. "Mariana, dear, I've been meaning to ask you for a long time. Has Raoul got a new project? I often see him leaving early in the morning with some woman. Probably his new colleague?" Mariana felt the ground go from under her feet. "With what woman?" Her voice sounded muffled, as if from far away. "A young one, in a business suit. They get into his car around the corner thinking no one can see them." The neighbor lowered her voice to a whisper. "I didn't want to tell you, but—" "Thank you, Senora Morales," Mariana interrupted her. "I have to go." She sank into the chair, clutching the phone in her hands. She wanted to call her brother to tell him everything, but something was stopping her. There was no proof yet. So far, it was only suspicion. She didn't want to look like a stupid, suspicious wife. Raoul came back around midnight. He smelled of expensive perfume, clearly not his usual scent. He went straight into the shower, and Mariana carefully checked the pockets of his jacket. In one of them, she found a receipt from La Palma restaurant, not where construction workers usually dined. As she fell asleep, she replayed the events of the last few weeks in her head. It all added up to a frightening picture, but she pushed the thoughts away. Perhaps there was a simple explanation for all of this. Maybe she really was making it all up. Perhaps. Monday began with a fine rain that drummed monotonously on the eaves. Mariana hadn't slept well. They'd had some disturbing dreams during the night, which left her with only a vague uneasiness. Raoul had already left, leaving an unfinished cup of coffee and an unfolded newspaper on the kitchen table. The office was unusually quiet. Sophia had taken the day off to take the baby to the doctor, and there was no one to create the usual bustle at the reception desk. Mariana sat at her desk, turned on her computer, but couldn't focus on the numbers. The lines in the spreadsheets blurred before her eyes. "Señora Estrella?" Jorge Ramirez's voice brought her out of her reverie. "Do you have a moment?" The chief gestured for her to sit down and looked intently over his glasses. "Mariana, I've noticed that lately you've been distracted. The quarterly report revealed errors that you don't normally make." She felt paint flood her face. "I'm sorry, Señor Ramirez. I'll fix it." "It's not about the mistakes." He was silent. "You know, my wife was an accountant too, and when we started having problems in our marriage, the first thing that suffered was her attention to numbers." Mariana shuddered. "Raoul and I are fine." "Of course," he nodded. "But if you need to take a few days off—" "No, thanks. Really, I'm fine." Returning to her desk, she saw her phone flashing with a missed call from Conchita, her co-worker in the neighboring department. They weren't close friends, but they sometimes ate lunch together at the small cafe across the street. "Mariana?" Conchita's voice sounded uncertain. "I'm sorry to bother you, but do you know a woman named Isabel Rojas?" That name didn't say anything to Mariana. "No, why?" "Just, I was at the mall yesterday and I saw your husband with a woman. They were having lunch together at a restaurant. I didn't want to say anything at first, but then I found out she works for his company. Isabel Rojas, sales manager." Mariana felt her back grow cold. "Maybe a business lunch? On Sunday?" Conchita was silent. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to pry, but they seemed very close." After this conversation, it became quite impossible to work. Mariana mechanically went through the papers, but her thoughts returned to Conchita's words. Isabel Rojas. That name now throbbed in her head, demanding answers. On her lunch hour, she dialed her brother's number. Ernesto answered after the first beep. "Sis? Is something wrong?" "Can you come down to the station? I need to talk to you." The police station was a 10-minute walk from her office. Ernesto was waiting for her at the entrance, still in uniform after his morning patrol. They went upstairs to his small office littered with case folders. "Tell me about it." He motioned her to a chair. Mariana began to speak, slowly at first, choosing her words, then faster and faster. About Raoul's strange calls, about his sudden desire to sell the house, about the endless repairs that no one saw, about the neighbor's words, about Conchita's story. Ernesto listened in silence, only the jowls running up and down his cheekbones. When she finished, he stood up and walked around the office. "Did you check his phone?" "No, I can't. He never leaves it unattended now." "What about bills? Credit cards?" "He's always been very careful with his papers." Ernesto stopped at the window. "Do you want me to check out this Isabel Rojas?" "No!" Mariana jumped up. "Not yet, no. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all just a coincidence." "There are no such things as coincidences," her brother turned to her, "especially coincidences like this." In the evening, Mariana ventured to talk. She cooked Raoul's favorite dish, set the table, even wore the dress she'd worn on their first date. He returned late, as usual. "Raoul," she began as he sat down at the table, "we need to talk." "Sure," he smiled, but the smile didn't touch his eyes. "About what?" "About what's going on. About the renovations, about your late returns, about what?" He set his fork aside. "Everything's going according to plan. The renovations are progressing. We'll be able to put the house on the market soon." "Really? And what exactly have you done so far?" "Took down the wallpaper, repainted the living room walls, replaced the wiring." He spoke confidently, but avoided her gaze. "And the roof. You said there were problems with it. Yes, we're working on it. Who's we, Raoul? He stood up abruptly from the table. What are you saying? Do you know Isabel Rojas? His face froze for a second, then he laughed. What does she have to do with this? She's a client from our company. The one who eats lunch with you on Sundays? Are you following me? His voice became hard. No, but people see, people talk. And you believe the rumors? He shook his head. I thought you trusted me. I want to trust. But you've become different. You're always disappearing somewhere, talking on the phone in whispers, coming back late. Because I'm working. He raised his voice. I'm trying to get everything done, both at work and with the renovation, and you're interrogating me over some gossip. Then let's go to the house together. Let's look at the renovations. This isn't the time. He turned away. It's a mess. Construction debris. When will it be time, Raoul? He didn't answer, only grabbed his jacket and car keys. I need to get some air. Don't wait up for me. The front door slammed so hard that the glass shook. Mariana was left alone at the set table with a cooling dinner. Her cell phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from Ernesto. How are you? She didn't answer. Instead, she got up and went into the bedroom. On the table by the bed was Raoul's shirt, which he had taken off before his shower. Mariana picked it up, going to put it away in the closet, and a folded piece of paper fell out of the pocket. It was a receipt from a jewelry store, dated yesterday afternoon. An engraved gold bracelet. Mariana remembered her last birthday well. Raoul had given her a food processor, saying there was no extra money for jewelry right now. She carefully put the check back in her shirt pocket, then pulled out her phone and texted her brother, "Tomorrow after work. Need to talk." After a sleepless night, Mariana felt wrecked. She mechanically got ready for work, trying not to look at the empty half of the bed. Raoul never came home, only sent a text, "Staying at a friend's house. We both need to cool off." At the office, the first thing she did was check her work email. Among the dozens of emails was one from Raoul, sent late at night. "Sorry about yesterday. I'm really working hard. I'm tired. Let's have dinner together tonight and talk quietly." Mariana closed the letter without replying. Instead, she opened a search engine and typed in Isabel Rojas Montoya. Social media gave up a page for a young woman, long black hair, bright makeup, a confident smile. "Señora Estrella." Sofia stood at her desk with a cup of coffee. "Someone to see you." Ernesto stood in the office doorway, still in his police uniform. He nodded toward the exit. "Shall we talk?" They went down to a small cafe on the first floor of the building. Ernesto ordered 2 coffees and got straight to the point. "I checked on your husband." "I didn't ask to do that," Mariana objected. "No, but I'm your brother, and I'm a cop." He pulled a notepad out of his pocket. "Your husband has withdrawn a significant amount of cash from his account in the last month, regularly dines out at expensive restaurants, and," he paused, "bought 2 plane tickets to Cancun for next week." Mariana felt her fingers go numb. Could this be a business trip? In the middle of a renovation? Ernesto shook his head. "Sis, stop kidding yourself. We need to check out the house." "But how? Raoul never leaves his keys." "You have your own keys. This is your house, remember? Your father left it to you." "And if Raoul is there?" "It's Tuesday. He should be at work." Ernesto finished his coffee. "I'll take the patrol car. Meet me at your office in an hour." Mariana returned to her workstation. Her hands trembled as she wrote a note to Sofia. "Urgent business. I'll be back this afternoon." Her phone vibrated on her desk. A new message from Raoul. "Made reservations at our favorite restaurant. 7?" She didn't answer. Exactly 1 hour later, Ernesto was waiting for her in the police car. All the way to the country house, they were silent. Mariana stared out the window at the passing landscape, remembering how often she and Raoul had traveled this road in the early years of their marriage. The house seemed smaller than she remembered. The white walls were faded with time, but there was no sign of repair. The grass was tall in the garden. Clearly no one had ever cleaned the place. There were dark oil stains on the driveway. Someone parked their car here regularly. The key turned in the lock with difficulty. The smell of perfume hit my nose, sweet, cloying, not at all like the perfume Mariana used. A woman's high-heeled shoes stood in the hallway. "Wait here." Ernesto drew his gun. "I'll check the house." But Mariana was already walking forward. The living room was just as she remembered, no sign of renovation. Only on the coffee table were 2 glasses of leftover wine and an ashtray of cigarette butts. Neither she nor Raoul smoked. In the kitchen, the dishes from a romantic dinner were in the sink. In the trash can were candle wrappers and dried rose petals. Mariana walked slowly up the stairs to the second floor. The door to the bedroom was ajar. The bed was unmade. On the pillow was a long black hair. In the closet, where old clothes used to be kept, now hung women's dresses. On the bedside table was a bottle of the very perfume she had smelled in the hallway. "Mariana," Ernesto called from the bathroom. "Look." In the toothbrush cup were 2 brushes, a pink one and a blue one. On a shelf was a cosmetic bag with the logo of an expensive brand. In the laundry basket was a man's shirt stained with lipstick. Mariana slowly lowered herself to the edge of the tub. Ernesto put his hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry, sis. I should have known sooner." Her voice sounded muffled. "It was so obvious." "What do you want to do?" She stood up. "Let's look around the rest of the house." Raoul's laptop now stood in the study where their father used to work. Mariana turned it on. She knew the password. It was their wedding date. In the Documents folder, she found a file with a renovation plan, a blank template created for the sake of distraction. The Photos folder, on the other hand, contained dozens of pictures of Raoul and Isabel in this very house, on the beach, in restaurants. "There are security cameras here," Mariana suddenly remembered. "Father installed them for security." Ernesto nodded. "Where are the tapes?" "There should be a recorder in the basement." They went down the narrow stairs. The basement smelled damp and wine. Raoul had set up a small wine cellar here. On the shelves were expensive bottles. That's where the money he'd supposedly spent on repairs had gone. They found the recorder behind an old closet. It was still working, recording what was happening in the courtyard and at the entrance. Ernesto plugged it into his phone and downloaded the recordings from the last month. "Here's the proof," he said. "Now you can file for divorce." "No," Mariana interrupted him. "Not yet." There was a steely note in her voice that Ernesto knew well. It was what their mother used to say when she was making an important decision. "What are you up to?" "I don't know, but I'm not going to let him get away with it that easily." She looked around the basement. "He used my house, our father's house, to meet with his mistress. He lied to me, manipulated me, spent our money on her." "Mariana." "No, Ernesto. I will not make a scandal. Not now." She climbed the stairs. "Let her think I know nothing. Let him go on with his games, and I'll figure out how to respond." They locked the house and got into the car. On the way back, Mariana was silent, staring straight ahead. Her phone vibrated again. Another message from Raoul. "I ordered your favorite wine. I'm expecting you at 7. "What are you going to do?" Ernesto asked, stopping in front of her office. "I'm going out to dinner with my husband," she smiled, but the smile didn't touch her eyes. "I'll be a good, understanding wife. Bye." "Sis, don't do anything stupid." "Don't worry," she got out of the car. "I'll do the right thing." At the office, the first thing she did was text Raoul. "Of course, darling, I'll be there at 7. Then she opened her laptop and started looking up the number of a good lawyer. The time for tantrums was over. The time for action had begun. The evening after discovering the truth passed like a blur. Mariana sat across from Raoul in the restaurant, smiling, keeping the conversation going, while the scenes she had seen at the country house replayed in her head. Every time her husband touched her hand, she remembered the pink toothbrush in the glass, the lipstick on his shirt, the stranger's perfume. "You seem pensive," Raoul remarked, pouring wine into glasses. "Tired," she gave a slight smile. "A lot of work before the quarterly report. Maybe you should take a vacation. Get some rest." "No, no. Now's not the time." Mariana sipped her wine. "Tell me, how are the renovations going?" Raoul became animated, began to tell about the allegedly replaced wiring, new roof tiles, plans to renovate the facade. She listened, noting every lie, every inaccuracy in his story. How could she have been so blind before? At home, lying in bed next to her peacefully sleeping husband, Mariana drew up a plan of action. The first was to find out more about Isabel Rojas. 2. Trace their routes, find out the schedule of their meetings. 3. Gather all the evidence. And then she'll decide what to do next. In the morning, as soon as Raoul had left for work, Mariana called her brother. "Need your help," she said in lieu of a greeting. "I'll be there in an hour." They met at a small coffee shop not far from the police station. Ernesto didn't come alone. His partner, Diego Garcia, a technician, was with him. "I told Diego the situation," Ernesto explained. "He'll help with surveillance." Diego pulled out a small briefcase. "Here's everything you need. GPS tracker for the car, directional microphone, camera with motion sensor." "Is this legal?" Mariana looked at the equipment doubtfully. "The car is registered to both of you," Diego shrugged. "And in the house. You're the only legal owner." For the next 2 hours they worked out a plan. Diego explained how to set up the equipment, how to obtain and store the information. Ernesto drew up a surveillance schedule, noting the most likely times of encounters based on the data from the country house cameras. "Here are his credit card printouts." Ernesto spread the papers out on the table. "Look, every Thursday he has lunch at La Palma, always orders for 2. On Saturdays they meet at the country house. You can see it on the security cameras. And last Wednesday he bought 2 tickets to Cancun. For next week," Mariana added. "He said he was going on a business trip to the capital." Mariana studied the printouts. Expensive restaurants, a jewelry store, a spa. All these expenses were carefully disguised as work expenses and renovation costs. "And here's information on Isabel Rojas." Ernesto held out a thin folder to her. 28 years old, single. Worked at your husband's company for the last 6 months. Prior to that, changed 3 jobs in 2 years. Curious detail, each time she left after a scandal with the boss's wife. "Professional separator," Mariana muttered, looking at the photo of the smiling brunette. "Here's her address and her daily routine." Diego pointed to the map. "Lives alone in an apartment downtown. Goes to the gym at 5th and Central every morning. Frequents the El Toro bar in the evenings." Mariana wrote down every detail. Something inside her changed. The pain and resentment disappeared, leaving only a cold desire to study everything thoroughly, to understand, to prepare. "Now we need to set up the equipment." Diego opened the case. "The GPS tracker is mounted under the bottom of the car, right here," he pointed to the diagram. "The battery will last for 2 weeks. The camera is best placed opposite the entrance to the house, disguised as a decorative element. And this," he pulled out a small microphone, "can be hidden in his car or his office. It has a range of 50 meters. "When do we start?" Mariana asked. "Tonight," replied Ernesto. "Did Raoul say he'd be late for work?" "Yes, until 9. "Great. I'll pick you up at 7. We'll set up all the equipment while he's gone." At 7 o'clock, as agreed, Ernesto showed up. With him were Diego and another policeman, Ramon, whom his brother introduced as an expert in surveillance. "Raoul's car is in the parking lot outside the office," Ramon reported. "I checked it out. He's really at work." They quickly installed a GPS tracker on Raul's car, hiding the cameras in the country house. Diego showed Mariana how to use a special app to view the data. All the signals will come here. He pointed to the screen of the new phone. You'll be able to see his movements in real time. What's next? Mariana asked when they were done setting up the equipment. Now we wait, Ernesto replied. Tomorrow is Thursday. He's scheduled to have lunch at La Palma. Let's see if he meets her. And if he notices the surveillance? He won't, Ramon said confidently. The equipment is professional. You can't detect it without special training. In the evening, when Raul returned home, Mariana met him as usual, with dinner and a smile. He talked about the previous day, the difficult client, the plans for the weekend. I'll be late tomorrow, Raul said before going to bed. Important meeting with the suppliers. Of course, darling, she replied, thinking of La Palma restaurant and regular Thursday lunches. As she fell asleep, Mariana felt strangely calm. She now had a plan. She had helpers. She had equipment. She was no longer a blind and helpless wife. She had become a hunter, and her prey didn't even know it. It happened on Saturday. Mariana woke up early, before dawn. Raul was sleeping next to her, his breathing even and calm. She looked at his face in the pre-dawn twilight, so familiar and so foreign. His phone vibrated quietly on the nightstand. A message had come in. Mariana knew who it was from. At breakfast, Raul was unusually animated, drinking coffee and constantly checking his phone. "You have plans today?" he asked, diligently buttering his toast. "Yeah, meeting some friends," Mariana lied. "It's been a long time coming." "Great," he sounded poorly concealed relief. "And I'm going to go to the facility. I need to check on the progress of the repairs." "Of course, dear," she smiled, noting how he avoided directly naming the country house. "Don't overdo it." As soon as the door closed behind him, Mariana pulled out her cell phone and dialed her brother's number. "He's on his way." "We're in position," Ernesto answered. "Diego is tracking his car. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Mariana dressed quickly, choosing a dark pantsuit. Today was not the time for dresses and heels. She put her hair in a tight bun and did minimal makeup. In her bag, she put a folder with printouts of surveillance photos and the deeds to the house. Ernesto was waiting in an unmarked squad car. Ramon sat behind the wheel, Diego in the back seat with his laptop. "He's heading down the main highway," Diego reported, looking at the screen. "Judging by the route, he'll pick her up first." They kept a safe distance, following the red dot on the screen. Raul's car stopped outside an apartment building in the center of town. "Isabel's address," Ernesto commented. 5 minutes later, a tall brunette in a tight red dress came out of the entryway. She was carrying a small gym bag. Raul got out of the car, helped her into the seat, and kissed her. It was right outside. In broad daylight, they weren't even trying to hide. "Are we recording?" Ramon asked. "Everything is recorded," Diego nodded. "Camera, GPS, time." They continued the stakeout. Raul's car turned onto the highway leading to the country house. Mariana sat silent, clutching her bag in her hands. Everything inside her froze as if time had stopped. "Here we are." Ramon stopped the car in a grove not far from the house. "What's next?" "Let's wait 15 minutes, Ernesto decided. "Let them relax." Mariana looked at the house through the gap between the trees. Here's Raul opening the door, letting Isabel inside. Here comes the light in the living room. Here are the curtains on the second floor being drawn. "It's time." She opens the car door. "Wait," Ernesto puts his hand on her shoulder. "Let me go first." "No, this is my house and my husband. I'll go first." They walked up the familiar path to the front door. Mariana pulled out her keys. The bunch jingled quietly in her hand. The lock opened noiselessly. In the hallway, Isabel's red dress lay on the floor. Raul's shoes were carelessly abandoned by the stairs. Muffled voices and laughter came from upstairs. Mariana climbed the stairs slowly, as if in a dream. Her brother's heavy breathing could be heard behind her. The door to the bedroom was ajar. She swung it open in one motion. Raoul and Isabel were in bed, the same bed where she and her husband had once slept. There was an open bottle of champagne and 2 glasses on the bedside table. For a few seconds there was dead silence. Then Isabel cried out and pulled the blanket up to her chin. Raoul sat up abruptly, his face turning white. "Mariana," he began. "Don't bother." Her voice sounded surprisingly calm. "I know everything. I have for a long time now. What are you doing here?" Isabel tried to put haughtiness in her voice, but it was obvious she was scared. "I'm the landlady here." Mariana opened her bag and pulled out her papers. "This is my house, inherited from my father, and here's the security footage my father installed. It's a very interesting movie." Raoul jumped off the bed, hastily pulling on his pants. "Listen, I can explain everything." "Really?" She grinned. "Explain how you use my house to meet your mistress, or how you spent our money on gifts for her, or maybe explain about the tickets to Cancun for next week." "You've been following me?" His face contorted with anger. "And you lied to me." She turned to Isabel, who was trying to discreetly gather her things. "And you, Señorita Rojas, should listen too." "Shut up!" Isabel tried to give herself a confident look, but it was not working well. "You're just jealous. Raoul loves me, not you." Ernesto appeared in the doorway in a police uniform. Isabel turned even paler. "Get out," Mariana pointed at the door. "Both of you. You have 5 minutes." They gathered hurriedly, not looking at each other. Isabel was tangling with the clasps of her dress. Raoul could never find his other shoe. When they finally dressed, Mariana blocked their way. "And another thing. Raoul, don't come home. Your things will be at the concierge, and don't even try to claim this house. I have all the evidence of your machinations." "You'll regret it," he hissed. "No, darling. It's you who will regret it. Very soon." They descended the stairs, passed through the living room where they had been making plans for the future back in the morning. At the door, Raoul turned around. "Mariana." "Get out." When the door closed behind them, Mariana slowly lowered herself into a chair. Ernesto sat down next to her, putting his hand on her shoulder. "You did good, sis." "I feel dirty." She looked around the room. "They messed up the whole place." "We'll clean it up." He pulled out his phone. "I'll call the cleaning service. They'll clean it up." "No." She shook her head. "First, have Diego copy all the camera footage, and we need to photograph every trace of them being here. And then—" She stood up. "Then the second part of the plan begins." "What second part?" Ernesto was wary. "You'll see." She walked to the window. Raoul's car was still parked in the driveway. He and Isabel were arguing about something. This is just the beginning. The sun was slipping toward sunset, coloring the sky blood red. Mariana watched Raoul and Isabel get into the car as they drove off down the winding road. In her hand, she clutched her cell phone. Everything she needed for the next step was there. Records, photos, documents. "Let's go home," she said to her brother. "We need to get ready." "For what?" "For retribution," she smiled. And in that smile there was nothing of the soft, homely Mariana everyone knew. "He wanted to take my house? Well, I'll take everything from him." The first night at her brother's house proved interminable. Mariana lay on the sofa in the living room, covered with a plaid, and listened to the ticking of the old floor clock. In the next room, Ernesto was talking on the phone in a muffled voice, apparently to one of his colleagues. The light from a street lamp was shining through the curtains, casting strange shadows on the ceiling. The phone on the coffee table blinked silently. 37 missed calls from Raoul, 23 messages. She didn't read them, but she couldn't delete them either.
Each notification was like a stab in the back. In the morning, Ernesto insisted she eat. He made scrambled eggs and tomatoes himself, a little burnt, but Mariana forced herself to eat a few bites anyway. "I called your office," her brother said, pouring her coffee. "Told Sophia that you're sick and won't be coming in for a few days." "Thank you," she warmed her hands against the hot cup. "But I can't hide here forever." "You need time." He sat down across from her. "At least a couple days." The doorbell rang. It was Diego with a folder of papers. He spread photos, printouts of messages, surveillance tapes on the kitchen table. "Everything is recorded," he said. "Dates, times, meeting places. Their conversations in the house are recorded too. The microphones worked perfectly." Mariana looked at the pictures. Here was Raúl kissing Isabel at the entrance to the house. Here they were entering the restaurant together. Here they were getting into his car. Each picture was like a slap in the face. Each date a reminder of her blindness.
"I put together a timeline," Diego continued. "Their relationship started about 4 months ago. First they met in hotels, then Raúl came up with a renovation story to use the country house." "And the money?" Mariana asked. "Here are all the expenses." He held out a spreadsheet to her. "Restaurants, gifts, hotels, a total of about 50,000 pesos in the last few months." She ran her eyes over the list. Necklaces from the jewelry store, spa treatments, designer clothes. The money she and Raúl had been saving for a new house was slipping away like water through her fingers. After lunch, Mariana's mother arrived. Apparently, Ernesto had called her. Doña Elena, always so reserved and elegant, now looked anxious and confused. "Daughter," she hugged Mariana, "why didn't you tell me right away?" "I didn't want to believe it." Mariana rested her face against her mother's shoulder, just like when she was a child. "Thought maybe I was imagining things." They sat in the living room drinking the herbal tea that Doña Elena always carried with her. Her mother was telling some stories from the past, trying to distract her, but Mariana almost didn't listen. Before her eyes was the scene in the bedroom of the country house. Isabel's triumphant smile, Raúl's confused face. Toward evening came a message from Sofia. "Señor Castro came to the office asking about you. I told him you were sick. He left a letter." "Don't open it," Ernesto said when he saw the message. "Whatever it is, it's manipulation." But Mariana was already visualizing the letter, a white envelope on her desk. What had he written? Excuses? An apology? Or accusations against her? At night, she couldn't sleep again. She stepped out onto the balcony, breathing in the cool air. Somewhere out there, on the other side of town, in their shared home, was Raúl awake too? Or is he with her, with Isabel, in her apartment overlooking the central square? The next day, Conchita arrived, the same co-worker who had first spotted Raúl with Isabel in the restaurant. She brought a homemade pie and a bottle of wine. "You have no idea what goes on in the office," she said, pouring wine into glasses. "Everyone's just talking about it. Turns out a lot of people saw them together, but no one dared tell you." "Everyone knew," Mariana grinned bitterly. "Everyone but me." "No, sweetheart," Conchita squeezed her hand. "You just thought too well of people. It's not your fault." By late afternoon, Ramon arrived with more surveillance data. "They had a fight," he reported. "Right in the middle of the restaurant. Isabel yelled that he'd ruined everything, that he should have been more careful, and he accused her of rushing things too fast." "Rats fleeing a sinking ship," Ernesto commented. Mariana sat in the armchair, wrapped in a plaid, and listened to the news with a kind of detached interest, as if it were about the characters in a television series and not about her own life. On the third day, she decided to go home to pick up some things she needed. Ernesto insisted on going with her. The house greeted them with an oppressive silence. Everything in the bedroom was the same as it had been on the morning of that fateful day.
The crumpled bed, Raoul's shirt left on the chair, his favorite cologne on the bathroom shelf. Mariana methodically packed her things into her suitcase: clothes, documents, photo albums. On the dressing table was their wedding photo. She turned the frame face down. "What's this?" Ernesto picked up an envelope that had fallen out of a stack of papers. Mariana picked it up. Inside were tickets to Cancun and a brochure for an expensive hotel. A romantic weekend for two. She tore the tickets into small pieces. That evening, back at her brother's house, Mariana finally opened the messages from Raoul. Apologies, pleas for forgiveness, promises to make things right alternated with accusations and threats. In the last message, sent an hour ago, he wrote, "You will regret this. I won't let you ruin my life." "Let him threaten," Ernesto said after reading the messages. "We have enough evidence against him." "I'm not afraid of threats," Mariana replied, and there was a new note in her voice, hard, determined. "It's time to move on to the next stage." "What next step?" She pulled a file folder out of her bag. "I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow. It's time to show Raoul what real revenge means." That night, Mariana fell asleep without tears for the first time in 3 days. The pain hadn't gone away, but something new had been added to it, a cold, calculating determination. Raoul wanted to take everything from her: her house, her money, her dignity. Well, she'd show him how it really was. The morning began with a phone call. The lawyer Ernesto had recommended could see them in 2 hours. Mariana carefully prepared for this meeting. She wore a strict black suit, gathered her hair in a perfect bun, applied light makeup, hiding the traces of sleepless nights. The office of attorney Gabriel Monte was located in an old building in the business center of the city. The reception area smelled of leather and expensive coffee, and diplomas in massive frames hung on the walls. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a shrewd eye, ushered them into a spacious office. "Have a seat, Señora Castro." Montes pointed to a chair by his desk. Mariana wrinkled her nose at the mention of her husband's last name. "Ortega," she corrected. "I want my maiden name back." Ernesto sat down next to his sister, placing a folder of papers on the table. Mariana began to narrate, dryly, businesslike, as if it were about someone else. Montes made notes in his notebook, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "So the country house is in your name only?" he asked, looking over the documents. "Yes, it's an inheritance from my father. Raoul never had any rights to it." "And the joint property?" "An apartment in the city, 2 cars, bank accounts." Mariana pulled out a list. "All acquired during the marriage." Montes studied the papers, making occasional notes. His face remained impassive, but interest flashed in his eyes when he reached the printouts of the bank accounts. "Interesting," he muttered. "Your husband has been making large expenditures without your knowledge, using general funds. We could use that." "I don't want a long divorce proceeding," Mariana said. "I have another plan." She outlined her idea. The lawyer's eyes widened more and more with each word. "It's risky," he said finally, "but doable. It will require meticulous preparation and flawless execution." "We have evidence of his treason." Ernesto laid a thumb drive of surveillance footage on the table. "And documentation of his financial fraud." "That's not enough," Montes shook his head. "We need to act quickly and decisively, before he has time to hide the assets." They spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Montes summoned his assistant, a young lawyer named Pablo, who began drafting the necessary documents. "The first step," the lawyer said, pacing around the office, "is to get control of all the joint accounts. Do you have power of attorney?" "Yes. Raoul set it up last year when he went on an extended business trip." "Excellent. The second step is the country house. We need to get a restraining order against it as soon as possible." "And the apartment?" Ernesto asked. The apartment was purchased during the marriage, but the main contribution was made from Senora Ortega's personal funds, an inheritance from her father. That gives us an advantage. By the end of the meeting, the plan was ready. Mariana signed several documents, received detailed instructions and a list of necessary actions. "Remember," Montes said in parting, "the main thing is speed and secrecy. Once he realizes what's going on, he'll start resisting." They left the office about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Their minds were spinning with the details of the plan, the timing, the actions required. "Are you sure?" Ernesto asked as they got into the car. "That's tough. Has he been nice to me?" She pulled out her phone and started texting. "No, bro. It's time to stop being kind. Time to be smart." The next stop was the bank. The manager, an older man who knew the Ortega family well, greeted them with obvious concern. "Señora Mariana, what a surprise." "Señor Gutierrez, I need your help." She placed the power of attorney and instructions from the attorney on the table. While the bank clerks performed the necessary operations, Mariana sat in the manager's office, methodically signing documents. Ernesto paced nervously nearby. "Done," the manager finally said. "All accounts have been transferred to your sole control, but Señor Castro will surely notice it soon enough." "Let him notice." Mariana tucked the documents into a folder. "He'll have bigger problems." Leaving the bank, she called Diego. "Is he still under surveillance?" "Yeah. He's in the office right now. Apparently he's going to meet Isabel." "Good. Keep monitoring him. I need to know his every move." The next item on the plan was to meet with the realtor. Joaquin Vera, an old friend of their family, listened to Mariana with sympathy and understanding. "Sell everything quickly and without too much fuss?" he interrogated. "It is possible. I have several interested clients." "The price must be reasonable," Mariana emphasized, "but the most important thing is speed." In the evening, they returned to Ernesto's house. Mariana felt a strange mixture of fatigue and excitement. The plan was beginning to materialize. Every detail was falling into place. "Now, we need to get Raúl ready," she said, spreading out the papers on the table. "He needs to be completely disoriented when it all starts." "How will you do that?" "With your help, little brother." She held out the folder to him. "Remember that financial fraud case you investigated last year? We could pull something like that with my husband." Ernesto frowned. "Do you want to use that?" "Why not? You have full authority to do the background check, and Raúl's paperwork will probably find some irregularities." "It's risky." "No, it's perfect." Mariana opened her laptop. "Look, here are his reports for the last quarter. I'm an accountant. I can see where he fudged the numbers." They worked until deep into the night, preparing documents for the audit. Mariana was ruthless in her meticulousness. Every figure, every entry could be a weapon. Around midnight came a message from Ramon. The subject had a fight with Isabel. She threatened to tell his superiors everything. "Great," Mariana commented. "Let them destroy each other on their own. Less work for us." "And if he figures it out?" "He won't." She closed the laptop. "He's overconfident. He thinks I'm sitting at home crying into my pillow." Before going to bed, she made a to-do list for tomorrow. Meeting with the real estate appraiser, visiting the notary, preparing documents for the inspection. Each step was well thought out, each action leading toward the same goal. "You know," she said to her brother, "Dad always said, if you've been betrayed, don't waste time crying. Take action." Daddy wouldn't approve of this kind of revenge. Daddy didn't live to see this day. She turned out the light. "And I want Raúl to remember that some mistakes cost too much." Mariana awoke at 4 in the morning to the ringing of her phone. Her brother's name popped up on the screen. "Here we go," Ernesto said briefly. "Be ready in an hour." She dressed quickly, drinking a strong cup of coffee. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from excitement, from anticipation. Diego was already waiting in the hallway with a folder of documents. "The team is in position," he reported. "Raúl's home. Just got back from Isabel's. According to the wiretaps, they had another fight." Dawn was just beginning to break when 3 unmarked police cars pulled up in front of the house. Mariana sat in the last one, watching through the tinted glass. Ernesto, already in full uniform, walked up to the porch and rang the doorbell with determination. Several minutes passed before a sleepy Raúl opened it. He was in homemade pants and a crumpled T-shirt, his hair disheveled. "What's going on?" he asked, squinting against the bright light of the street lamps. "Señor Castro," Ernesto began in an official tone, "we have a warrant to search your home and examine your financial records for suspected fraud and tax evasion." Raúl's face changed. "There's some kind of mistake." "No mistake." Ernesto handed him the documents. "Please come with us to the station to testify." The policemen were already entering the house. One carried a laptop computer, another carried boxes to seize documents. Raúl stood in the hallway, confused as he watched them methodically search every room. "Can I call my lawyer?" he asked. "Sure," Ernesto nodded. "But first, we have to seize all the documentation." The first evidence was found in the office, folders with forged reports that Mariana had carefully prepared the day before. On his work computer, they found files with altered financial figures. "It's not mine," Raúl tried to protest. "I don't know where it came from." "You'll tell the station about it," Ernesto replied coldly. "Officer, handcuff the suspect." As Raúl was being led out of the house, Mariana noticed his hands trembling. He looked around as if looking for support, but saw only the indifferent faces of the police officers. At the station, he was put through the formalities of fingerprinting, photographing, and seizing personal belongings. Ernesto personally conducted the first interrogation, methodically asking questions about every suspicious document. "This is a standard check," he said, "but until we get all the details straight, you will remain in custody." Mariana watched the interrogation through the one-way glass. Raúl looked lost, his self-confidence evaporated. He was confused in his testimony, contradicting himself. "How long can he stay in custody?" she asked Diego. "A minimum of 72 hours until formal charges are filed. Then it's up to the judge." "That's enough." She pulled out her cell phone and dialed the realtor's number. "Señor Vera, we can begin." The next 2 days turned into a whirlwind of events. The realtor organized showings of the apartment to potential buyers. Mariana methodically packed her belongings, sorting them into 3 categories: to sell, to give to charity, to take with her. Joaquin Vera called on the evening of the second day. "I have a buyer for the apartment, ready to put down a deposit right now." "Perfect," she glanced at her watch. "In an hour at your office?" The documents for the sale of the apartment were signed late into the night. The buyer, a successful middle-aged businessman, was in a hurry to close the deal and was not stingy with the upfront payment. At the same time, there were negotiations on the sale of a country house. The price had to be lowered, but Mariana didn't mind. The main thing was to do everything quickly, while Raúl was in the detention center. On the 3rd day, she met with Raúl's boss. A gray-haired man in an expensive suit listened attentively to her story about her husband's financial fraud. "We will conduct an internal investigation," he said. "In the meantime, Señor Castro is suspended." Isabel didn't escape the consequences either. An anonymous letter to Human Resources with evidence of her liaison with a married co-worker resulted in immediate dismissal. In the evening, Ernesto called. "The judge extended the detention for another 3 days, but then we'll have to let him go. There's not enough evidence for a real case." "I have enough time," Mariana replied, as she signed a contract with a transportation company to move her belongings. The bank transactions went on as usual. All joint accounts were closed, Money transferred to new accounts opened in her name only. Raoul's credit cards were blocked. Cars were put up for sale. On the fifth day, Mariana entered their former apartment for the last time. The empty rooms echoed with her footsteps. She left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of all the estate sale documents and a short note. "You wanted to take my house? I took everything." Soon, a plane was waiting for her. The new apartment in the capital had already been paid for, her belongings shipped, and the paperwork completed. She stood at the window, looking at the city where her whole life had passed. The phone vibrated. A message from the duty officer. "Suspect Castro has been released from custody." Mariana imagined Raoul walking out of the station, driving home, unaware that there was no more house, no more car, no more money in the accounts. The sky over the city was filling with clouds. It was beginning to rain, just like the day she had first suspected her husband was cheating. But now, she felt only relief. Revenge had come, and with it came release. Raúl Alejandro Castro emerged from the police station in the early hours of the morning. His suit was wrinkled, his stubble 3 days old, his eyes confused and angry. He pulled out his phone. It worked, but all the banking apps were blocked. He tried to call a cab, but his credit card wouldn't work. At the same time, Mariana was finishing packing. Her plane ticket was hidden in her passport, her documents neatly organized in folders. On the table was a cup of cooled coffee, the last breakfast in this city. Ernesto followed Raúl's movements through his subordinates. His former son-in-law walked across town, periodically trying to call the bank, Mariana, or Isabel. All the numbers were unavailable. "He's heading toward your apartment," Ramon reported over the radio. "Let him go," Ernesto replied. "There's a surprise waiting for him there." Raúl reached the house around 10 in the morning. The guard at the entrance stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, but the new owners don't allow outsiders in." "What new owners? I live here." "No, senor. The apartment was sold 3 days ago. It's being renovated." Through the first-floor window came the sound of drills and the pounding of hammers. In the dumpster outside the house, Raúl spotted a familiar coffee table, the same one he and Mariana had bought in their first year of marriage. He pulled out his cell phone and dialed his wife's number again. The answering machine said the caller was unavailable. The next call was to the bank. "We are sorry, Senor Castro, but all joint accounts have been closed by order of your wife. She had all the necessary powers of attorney." In the office, another blow awaited him. His boss called him into the office. "I'm sorry, Raúl, but in light of recent events, we have evidence of your attempt to sell confidential information to a competitor. You're fired." In the parking lot outside the office, he discovered that his car was gone. The security guard indifferently reported. The representatives of the leasing company took it. Something about overdue payments. At this time, Mariana was on her way to the airport. Ernesto was driving, and in the back seat were 2 suitcases with everything she had decided to take into her new life. "Raúl has completely lost his head," his brother said. "Tries to borrow money from his co-workers, but no one will give him any. His reputation is ruined." "And Isabel?" "She left on the evening bus last night. Didn't even say goodbye to him." Mariana stared at the city floating by outside the window. Every street, every intersection held memories, both happy and bitter. Here, she and Raúl had walked after the wedding. There they had quarreled for the first time, and in that cafe he had proposed to her. The airport was unusually quiet for a Monday morning. Ernesto helped his sister with baggage check-in. At the passport control counter, they stopped. "Are you sure?" he asked one last time. "More than sure." She hugged her brother tightly. "Thank you for everything." At this time, Raúl had reached the country house, or rather, to the place where it had been. Now it was bustling with work. The new owners had started a large-scale remodeling. "Who sold the house?" he demanded of the foreman. "The deal was finalized 3 days ago. The rightful owner, Senora Ortega, sold it to my clients." Ortega. She'd even reclaimed her maiden name. Raúl sat down on the curb, wrapping his arms around his head. Everything was falling apart. The house, the apartment, the car, the job all gone in a few days while he sat in a cell on trumped-up charges. His cell phone was dead. There wasn't even money for the bus. He wandered back into town on foot, trying to comprehend what had happened. How could she? The quiet, submissive Mariana, who had always yielded to him in everything. How had she managed to plan and execute all of this? At the airport, they announced boarding for the flight to the capital. Mariana passed the last check and found herself in the departure area. Here, among the rushing passengers, she finally felt relieved. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She pulled out her phone and dialed a message to her brother. "It's okay. I'm here." Then she opened the banking app. All the funds had been successfully transferred to the new accounts. The house was sold, the apartment too, the cars sold, divorce papers ready to be filed. In a small hotel on the outskirts of town, Raúl tried to gather his thoughts. There was enough money for 2 more days' stay, and then he would have to decide something. Isabel wouldn't answer her phone. Her colleagues turned away when they met. Her friends pretended not to recognize him. He tried to contact a lawyer, but he asked for a retainer, which Raúl didn't have. Banks refused loans after seeing his credit history. Even the plastic card in the coffee machine was rejected. The airplane was gaining altitude over the city. Mariana looked out the porthole. The clouds were turning pink. The sun was rising above the horizon. Somewhere down there, her old world remained. Betrayal, pain, humiliation. And there was a new life ahead. In her pocket was the letter she was going to send to Raúl in a week. "Raúl, by the time you get this letter, I'll be far away. Don't try to find me. All traces are erased. All bridges are burned. You know, I've been thinking a lot about what to write to you. Maybe tell you how you broke my heart. How you betrayed not only me, but my father's memory by using his house to meet your mistress. How you destroyed everything I believed in, but I won't do that. Because right now I feel no hate, no pain, just emptiness. You're nothing to me now, Raúl. The man I once loved died the moment I saw you with her in my father's bed. You must be surprised at how things turned out. Didn't expect this from the quiet, submissive Mariana. Did you think I'd cry, beg, try to get you back? No, darling. You taught me that love is nothing when it comes to betrayal. I took everything from you, your house, your money, your reputation. But the truth is, you've lost so much more. You lost a woman who truly loved you, who trusted you, who was willing to forgive any mistake except betrayal. Don't look for me. Don't try to contact me. You're dead to me, and dead men don't write letters. Goodbye, Raúl. I hope she was worth it. Mariana. P.S. All the documents for the sale of the property and the closing of the accounts are attached to the letter. You can admire how methodically I've destroyed your life. Consider this my final gift, a lesson you'll never forget. The plane flew eastward, toward a new day and a new life. Mariana took out a small mirror from her purse, a gift from her mother. In the reflection, she saw a different woman, strong, determined, able to defend herself, a woman who wasn't afraid to start over. Below, in the tangle of city streets, a man walked slowly toward a cheap hotel, trying to understand how he had lost everything he had in a few days. And in the sky above him, an airplane flew away, carrying away a woman whose revenge was more terrible than any rage, cold, calculating, and absolute.